Hi, friends of the planet. Miro here. Today, we're super excited to have Senator Sheldon Whitehouse here with us today to talk about some aspects before Vice President Joe Biden is sworn into office. So, Senator, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
My first question that I wanted to ask is, we saw a lot in the past election of 2020 that Democrat initiatives to progress climate action, such as the Green New Deal, were labeled as socialism and were really attacked by the right. So I wanted to ask, how can Democrats move past that label, that any action on climate change is just socialist overreach, and really make the case to the American public that this is the best way to put people back to work and to build a more resilient future for our country?
I would say just do it. Do it big,
Okay.
do it fast, and then let the results speak for themselves. There's a reason that Republicans had to misrepresent what the Green New Deal was and then attack their own misrepresentation of the Green New Deal. It's because the underlying policies that the Green New Deal rubric encompasses are really popular. Don't fight over nomenclature, get it done, and let the facts give us the credit that will be due for having made these improvements. And if we want, at the end of the day, to go back and remind everyone how much they had lied about this, that's an option. But in the meantime, get it done.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Senator, that this is sort of a seize the moment. It's a pivotal moment. It's a turning point. You know, we can use all those phrases to describe where we are right now. And as we're anticipating a new Congress with 50 Democratic senators and a tie-breaking vote with now Vice President or soon to be Vice President Kamala Harris, how do you think Democrats should approach climate legislation? Do you think there's a way to get compromise with Republicans, or do you think we just have to drive it through?
I think you got to do both. You can't get yourself in the Obamacare trap of committing yourself to a bipartisan pathway that the Republicans then strategically slow walk, and you end up back where you were having to do something on a partisan basis, but you've lost your momentum on that front. So I think we've got to pursue bipartisanship because it's real. It's there to be had. But in the event that it's abused, we've got to have the so-called budget reconciliation strategy ready to go to push something really big through with a simple majority. I really, really do think that bipartisanship is very achievable here. Mitch McConnell used his power as the leader to block bills that could have gotten 70 or 80 votes. And he did it both to protect his deniers and naysayers from having to vote in a way that the public would mock and laugh at and is inconsistent with science and so forth. But he also did it to protect the big fossil fuel interests who basically fund his politics. You can't take the Mitch McConnell blockade on all things climate as a signal about partisanship. I believe that we'll be able to do a big bipartisan bill, and we'll do it better if there's a credible reconciliation threat that takes away their ability to use bipartisanship as a delaying and obstructing tactic.
How about a climate emergency threat? It's not as if we don't have some executive authorities that could help to nudge the legislative process along. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think really robust executive authority can help nudge the legislative process along. And at the moment, the Biden administration is talking a really good game on this. I think our dirty secret as Democrats is that we've kind of been waffly and weak on climate for a long time now. So I'm taking the Biden administration talk with a grain of salt. I'm in the Missouri, show me school. So I'm encouraging them not only to lean in hard on executive authorities wherever they can, all the way across the agency array,
whole of government.
Whole of government, but also to make sure that they're setting the conditions for victory in the future by doing the stuff now that we need to do, specifically getting after the fossil fuel community's denial apparatus. That's basically a big crooked operation that we've let operate with impunity. We can no longer let it operate with impunity. And the second is to give the good guys in the American corporate community a boot in the rear end, because they're not showing up in Congress. They're totally not showing up in Congress on climate. And there are abundant ways to prove that. But you change those two things. You put the fossil fuel denial apparatus on its heels, and you get the good guy corporate community motivated, and suddenly Republicans are going to look at this in a much different way, because that's their base.
I mean, look at EVs. That's a perfect example of policy-driven, economic boom just waiting to happen. And Tesla's stock prices and GM's anxiousness and Ford's anxiousness to jump in. To me, it's there.
And under Republican leadership, the Environment and Public Works Committee unanimously approved a highway bill that had a massive EV infrastructure program, in addition to a climate title, in addition to a coastal infrastructure program, because we're dealing with sea level rise and all. So there's a lot there that is ready to move once the McConnell personal blockade of all of this is lifted.
Senator, I wanted to touch back on bipartisanship. And since 2012, your time to wake up speeches on the Senate floor have really told an important story about the urgency of climate change. And I wanted to ask, have any of your Republican colleagues been receptive to these speeches? Have you built any inroads or relationships based off of them?
Yeah. First of all, senators tend to have some respect, even grudging respect, for colleagues who are really persistent on something. So even if they don't agree with me, they got to kind of admit, okay, this guy's been really sincere and really persistent. A lot of them actually do agree with me. And what people need to understand is that this is really not a partisan issue. I got there in 07. I was sworn in January of 07. And all through 07, 08, and 09, climate was a totally bipartisan issue. John McCain ran for president as a Republican with a really good climate platform. And then came January of 2010 and Citizens United and unlimited political money and a fossil fuel industry that used that new political weaponry to take the Republican Party and say, there's going to be no dissent. You all line up, shut up, and do what you're told. And they did. And that created a lost decade of fake partisanship. A lost decade of fake partisanship. But through that decade, I've been talking to Republican senators about trying to get something done. And it's like talking to prisoners about escape. Like, they want to do it, but they don't see the way. They don't want the gun towers to shoot them. They can't let Mitch McConnell, the warden, know what they're planning. It's weird, but it's there to be done. And it's the appearance of partisanship as an artifact of political muscle and mischief by the fossil fuel industry. Thank you, Citizens United, for that.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in with this question because it was one we added about your reaction to the fossil fuel companies and many corporations deciding to forego political donations, at least for a time. I mean, it's amazing. It's the one thing we've been wanting to happen all along, and Donald Trump did it. Like, he managed to get us to a place where they're stopped, at least for now. And do you think it will last?
We'll see. I mean, I wish they'd suspend their climate denial and obstruction donations as well. When the two biggest corporate trade associations in America, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the National Association of Manufacturers, get outed as the two worst climate obstructors in America, that's a wake-up call for corporate America, that something really badly went wrong in those trade associations. They've been funding this stuff. So I think if they decide that they want to stop funding the destruction of the U.S. Capitol by mobs, then maybe they ought to think about ceasing their funding for the destruction of the planet by fossil fuel industry thugs.
Indeed. I know we've heard you say that a lot, Senator, and I hope that this gives us an opportunity as a nation to really think through that point.
Yeah, I'm not impressed until they do that.
Until they do, yeah. Need more proof. Let's see them really walk the walk.
Yeah. Exactly.
I wanted to ask, Governor Gina Raimondo of your home state has been nominated by incoming President Biden to serve as the Commerce Secretary, which means that NOAA will be under her jurisdiction.
Yep.
And I wanted to ask, what are some of the ways that you hope that she might lead NOAA and what her priorities should be?
Well, I think just making oceans a priority is a big deal. I have started referring to her, and I will continue to refer to her as the Secretary of Oceans and Commerce. We have a whole Department of the Interior that does nothing but the upland and the inland. Where's our Department of Oceans? When you look at the Land and Water Conservation Fund, all that money goes upland and inland. Where's the money to take care of our coasts and our oceans, our bays, our estuaries? I mean, it's really been unfair. It's really been one-sided. Oceans have been a stepchild, overlooked, underfunded, and an innovative, aggressive, smart governor from the ocean state, I think, has a huge opportunity to make a big difference. Her remit is storms, sea level rise, ocean plastics, aggressive international pirate fishing, acidification. I mean, there's so much going wrong in the oceans right now, and we've been so negligent about taking care of it. She has an enormous runway in front of her to make a really big difference, and I'm very excited at those prospects.
It's an agency that I think is underappreciated, but will make a huge difference in the next decades because of its climate work. And I think climate forecasting is another area that she could take on, because we could certainly use better information about what to expect from climate and how to better adapt.
Because of fossil fuel industry pressure, we are getting bad information from FEMA maps
Right.
and from other places about what the future looks like. And for people who think that this is a kind of a save the whales, greeny, liberal, deal, go read what Freddie Mac, not an environmental organization, the ginormous mortgage company in the US, is saying about a coastal property values crash that will be a worse economic wipeout than the 2008 mortgage meltdown, because we have lousy information about the danger to our coasts. And at some point, you're not going to be able to get insurance or mortgages on threatened coastal properties, and that's what precipitates the crash. Even if you don't care one damn about a whale, the economy is going to come and kick you in the rear end if we don't get ahead of this.
Not to mention if you're a farmer or you live near a river that floods, or you live in the Southwest and you're stuck in a
fire
oven,
issues,
right? The fires,
the river flooding issues, the drought issues, all of this is being looked at by really smart people in the private sector, and they're going to pull away from the danger areas. And if the government isn't giving regular people the good information that big investors are gathering for themselves, they're going to be played for suckers.
Or left behind and victims again, just to be bailed out. I really appreciate that. And I think she's going to be a great Secretary of Commerce. Last question, how optimistic are you about 2021 and climate progress? I know you've said go big and you're urging ambition and high expectation, a lot of energy, a lot of excitement. Where do you hope we'll be at the end of the year?
I think the opportunity is immense right now. I think there's latent bipartisanship out there. There is huge opportunity in terms of getting big things done that will really unleash the economy in super positive ways. The Democratic caucus in the Senate, I think, is very unified that something big needs to be done. And the Biden administration is making all the right noises about taking this really deadly seriously. To me, the opportunities are there. And if we seize them, this could be enormous. And my early signals are going to be, do they pick up the pace a lot? I mean, dramatically from the Obama administration, which largely sleepwalked through the climate problem. If they're going to take the Obama degree of initiative and determination and revive it in the Biden administration, they're going to fail. They've got to have a whole new level of determination. And I think at least the talk is that they're there. And then, as I said earlier, you got to set the preconditions for victory. If you're going to let the dark money funded, fossil fuel driven, climate obstruction and denial machinery operate against you with impunity and not call it out and not expose it and not deal with it as a threatening adversary, then you're engaged in political malpractice. And if you're going to let corporate America sit this one out and let their trade associations come in and not even mention climate change, TechNet, right? The Silicon Valley companies that are supposedly good at this stuff had a 13-page briefing for Congress for 2021 on what they wanted, and they never mentioned climate change. They didn't even mention renewable energy, and they got renewable energy companies in their membership. So the absence of corporate America is something that the president can cure by rallying and galvanizing them. You change the playing field for a big climate bill with a wounded, corrupt denial apparatus and an emboldened corporate presence reassuring Republicans that they won't be left high and dry, and suddenly it's game on, and you've got a broad highway for progress.
Well, that's really a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Senator. You've long been a climate champion and an ocean champion. And
an ocean champion, indeed, Monica, like you.
Yes, indeed. And I can tell you that I think the administration hears you and the incoming Biden administration. And I think the President Biden himself believes it. And that matters. I'm not to make any comparisons with previous holders of the office, but I think when he puts it in the top 4 issues that have to be addressed, and he talks about it with the urgency of by the end of his first term, I think that makes a difference.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt that he's from Delaware.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Delaware is in such harm's way right now. It's almost as small as Rhode Island, and it's a lot flatter. So they've got a lot to lose if we don't get ahead of this problem. And I don't think that President Biden wants to be the man who oversaw the redrawing of the map of his home state, because we were too negligent and chicken to take on the fossil fuel industry and drive a really smart, really strong climate bill through Congress.
We hope so. We're looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Senator, for your time today. Thanks for being such a great friend of the planet.